Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Simply ICS Cyber podcast. I'm Don C. Weber, the cybersecurity guy.
And hello, everyone. This is Tom VanNorman. I'm the ICS OT guy. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Dan Ricci on some vulnerability feeds. Dan, want to give the audience a little bit of a background of what you do?
Sure. I'm Dan Ricci. I'm the founder of the ICS Advisory Project and founder of Industrial Data Works, providing vulnerability intelligence as an open source tool to the ICS OT community, is also providing consulting services to the community as well. Been working in ICS for over 8 years. Prior to that, I was in the Navy for 21 years doing cybersecurity, SIGINT, and telecommunications. So that's about me.
Hey, Dan, it's awesome. It's great to see you. We've worked on a couple of things together, and we see each other out at the different conferences and events. First of all, thank you for your service in the Navy. I really appreciate that as well. But also thank you for your work on the ICS Advisory Project. And I'm just going to throw it up here real quick, and we can certainly delve into it. But we will include some of the links in here for the show notes. But I definitely want to highlight this. There's a couple of really cool things about this. First of all, this is a product of your time and effort and research. You started this, pulling things together. I'm going to let you go into that in just a second, but I would just want to highlight that this started off as a personal project, both for that you put out there to the community. It evolved into something else, which good projects do. But I definitely want to highlight that. So what is the advisory project? Why did you start it? And how are people using this to their advantage?
Sure. No problem, Don. Again, thank you for the intro and thank you for your service in the Marine Corps, and also Tom in the Air Force. Yep. So we're all covered. So I started the ICS Advisory Project primarily from my observations when I was doing consulting with Deloitte for a couple of years, then also when I went back doing cyber risk assessments in the DoD as a contractor. And the fundamental problem that I observed over and over again is the way that organizations were tracking ICS vulnerabilities and how it was pretty much ad hoc, was highly focused on just the CVEs on their own without looking at the nuances of the vulnerability, which CISA does a great job, I think, in their ICS advisories, kind of explaining the challenges in the patching and what's available to, and also gives you a little bit more background on who the vendor is. But what I also realized as part of this is the advisories themselves. It was in the format of like a HTML report. You could also get an email and everything. I was like there's got to be a faster way where someone can sort through this and filter it and only look at the vulnerabilities that are applicable to the vendors and products that they're using in their ICS environments. So what happened from there is I started developing visualizations of these of the ICS advisory reports, basically in Excel. It was the most simplest way to do it, and when I would do cyber risk assessments, I started doing leave behinds of products of the vulnerabilities that were applicable to their environment and building a dashboard for that in Excel using pivot tables and slicers, and then providing that. And I thought there's a better way of doing this because this is just a snapshot in time. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'm no longer doing cyber risk consulting. I am in a CISO position, and I have a little bit of time to actually focus on doing development. So I started looking for open source tools that I could do the visualization. I already had an idea of how to clean up the data to make it visualize better than what it would if the data was dirty, right? So standardize the vulnerability names, try to clean up some of the product name information, break out the CVEs, the CVSS scores, the vector data, the common weakness enumeration, the sectors, all the critical infrastructure sectors, the researchers, all the great information that's contained in the ICS advisory, but break that out because I knew I could visualize it. I could geo-rectify where the headquarters were the vendors are at, so I could kind of give that perspective of like, from a supply chain perspective, who actually influences that product, where it's located, and also start to correlate, that data, because now that it's clean and it's broken up into their own fields, I can start to do correlation between that CVE to like other third-party products. So it started to help me to build visualizations for the KEV catalog. So once I brought in the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog into and did a visualization of that, I could start to correlate that between the actual ICS vendors and product vulnerabilities to show like where, like, okay, this product by Siemens is also using, Open SSL or they're using Open VPN, or they're using what else? Or they're using a Cisco iOS, which is found in like, Rockwell or Allen Bradley Stratix networks, industrial network switches. So it was, once I opened up and cleaned up the data, it just opened up a lot of opportunities for doing other sorts of vulnerability analysis, and also open up a way to start to prioritize the vulnerabilities themselves. So
yeah, I've been clicking around. I've been clicking around a little bit and going back and forth. The data always takes a little bit of time to load. I'm sure there's a massive amount of data that's going on in the background. I pulled up the KEV. So as soon as you mentioned the KEV, I went over. It's my favorite one anyways, just because the KEV's so important. What I like about it is that it provides a dashboard that presents a lot of information, but also allows you to drill into it, kind of filter on some of the things that you are interested in within your organization, whether you're in electricity or water or manufacturing. If you're a Siemens plant or a Phoenix contact plant or something like that, you can really kind of delve into some of the technologies that you're more interested in and have an impact on you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can really focus on looking at, specific vendor products that you think are only used in specific critical infrastructure sectors, and realize that it's used across multiple critical infrastructure sectors. And a lot of that information is based off of like what the vendor's advertising on their website, and trying to understand through like their case studies that they publish and implementations of that product to understand what critical infrastructure sectors potentially use that. Largely a good chunk of industrial control system products are used in energy and critical manufacturing.
So Dan, the KEV list is less than 4 years old. What is the KEV list for our listeners that don't know what that acronym means, and why do we care? There's so many other lists out there. There's so many different things and data and whatnot. But can you tell us a little bit about the list and why it matters?
Yes, yeah, sure, certainly, Tom. So like the CISA known exploited vulnerability catalog was published by CISA around, I think it was like November of 2021. But I think people really started paying attention to it around the time that Log4j hit. And what happened was CISA was monitoring the exploitation of these vulnerabilities in the wild, and they basically started building this list of exploited vulnerabilities or people adversaries being observed trying to exploit the vulnerability, or other groups, and they realized that the government itself, federal agencies, need to take action on it. So if you look at the KEV catalog, there's a date that's been put out there, and there's a date that they want it to actually be addressed by, a due date. And was designed for federal agencies to actually take timely action to try and mitigate these vulnerabilities. Now,
Actually, when I just looked at that up, Dan, I mean, because this kind of popped into some of the stuff that I was doing earlier, and I just Googled it. The AI came back with DHS and CISA released a binding operational directive, a BOD, which is 22-01, about reducing the significant risks of known exploited vulnerabilities. So I think that's kind of like the first time when they really pointed organization towards that.
yes, absolutely. I couldn't remember the directive off the top of my head, so I was kind of just talking about it from my memory of like when I was implementing. But yeah, the BOD was basically the message that came out that started the KEV. So not to sound like a idiot here.
No. I just I looked it up. I didn't even know about it until actually yesterday when I actually found that. So that's why it was.
I remember when yeah, and I was at the time I was a CISO, so and I had my company made embedded voice gateways, so I had embedded system products that I had to go through and identify which ones were impacted by the Log4j vulnerability. And what that forced me to do is actually build a catalog or a database of our SBOM, our software bill of materials for all our products at the company. So that way I could quickly go through and query if a product was impacted by the KEV catalog, because a majority of our customers were government. They were federal agencies that were buying these industrial voice gateways. That was really kind of like my first exposure with the KEV, and that got me thinking of like how we could like build a way to correlate that data with ICS vulnerabilities.
Have you seen some? And I'm sorry, I apologize, Tom.
Now, Dan, when we talk about the KEV, we mentioned a due date. I never really realized what that due date was until you just mentioned it.
Yeah,
I'm going through that list now, and some of them are a day. Like there's a Microsoft SharePoint one that's 1 day from the date that it added to the due date, and there's other ones that are 6 months, and varies between 6 months and a day.
Yeah.
Can we take off of that like this Microsoft SharePoint vulnerabilities a higher risk of being exploited and a really bad thing that you have to patch immediately versus one that a due date of 6 months? Is that
so? I think this KEV helps organizations start to like increase visibility and prioritization to take action and patch like other vulnerabilities over others. But I think there's other nuances that are not taken into consideration here, just because the CVSS score is like near 10, and it's being observed on the catalog as being potentially exploited. I think you also got to look at your customer or your asset owner's environment. You need to look at the actual attack vector of the exploit. Is it a network attack vector? Is it a complex attack that needs to occur? Is it whether it's a high or low complexity, which means that if it's a low complexity attack, a script kiddie could basically execute it. Do they need to have privileged access to execute the vulnerability? And all that information is contained in the CVSS vector, right? Which you can see on, I break out the vectors on the KEV catalog separately, and I also do this on the known on the ICS Advisory Project's CISA advisories. But if you go down on like I think it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll be number 4.
The 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take a moment to load, but go ahead.
Yeah, you can also when you see on the actual website, if you scroll over the actual dashboard, you see that little gray area there. It pops out with a pop out. That can make it. Yep. If you click on that, it'll open a new one.
Yeah, I might have to share that. Hang on just a second.
Yeah, it'll actually make the dashboard much larger, where you can view it and actually have a little bit more flexibility and options to filter and enlarge the screen so you can actually see it a little bit better.
Yeah, let me find that one real quick.
Yep.
I think it's this one. Yep, there we go. Let me add that. Is it added? Oop. Highly technical here. All right, we're going deep on the technology this time.
Yeah. So see at the bottom there where you can pop it out, or where it'll just show the numbers, or you can make it small on the left-hand side where you got the menu of the dashboards. That's how you go. Yeah. So we were going to go look at number 4, which is the Kev catalog CVSS vectors, and this starts to get into like what I was talking about. So on the very bottom table below all the below everything, so you could like select a specific in the other table, on the top table, you could select that specific Kev catalog. I wouldn't click on that because it's hyperlinked. Click on just click on that row.
Just click on the row, the one?
Yeah. It should filter the everything. Oh, this is one of the ones where you have to filter it from the bottom. All right. Anyways, this is going to show you the specific breakdown in the chart at the top, right? So if you like the chart, all the pie graphs here kind of like should start to like filter on what everything is there. So did it do that? This might be one of those ones
That's fine. Yeah, so I mean, you can as you're going through the tool, you can learn how to use it a little bit better and drill into some specific aspects associated with these individual vulnerabilities.
Yeah, because you can go in and look at, and basically what it allows you to do is start to look at the vector themselves, where I was talking about the network, the attack vector, the complexity, all those things in there start to like help you with the prioritization here.
Okay.
Let's see here.
I guess we could let you share. I mean,
no, this is completely fine.
Yeah. But I think the point to the viewers is that you've got this resource out here that you can look for. It's much easier. I've got that. I've actually got and I'm not going to add it because it's going to do a lot of stuff. There are different views in the Kev list, but there's nothing like this. In other words, it's you can download the CSVs, the JSON, and so forth. But it is while the website is useful, and like Tom was talking about, it does have the different dates. But it's nothing like this. In other words, there's this is much more highly interactive, being able to select different products and different capabilities to understand what you're working with. So that's why I really like your tool.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, there's a lot where I think it just gives the asset owner the ability to start to like really get in and pick and choose and understand what they want to look at that's specific to their environment, vice trying to look at everything all at once.
So when the challenges for some, they're obviously larger organizations are going to have larger teams doing a vulnerability management, and smaller organizations they're going to be more challenged with personnel, time, and actually not wanting to do changes because things are running within these environments. And so vulnerability management has always been an issue, patching and updating. But so what are your experiences with people out in these environments in doing vulnerability management with an ICS?
So my experience with doing vulnerability management in ICS largely stems from doing it in auto manufacturing specifically. Um, and it's probably because I was involved in the implementation of a vulnerability management plan across like 5 different plants. And the challenge that I encountered was was not just like the, you know, you find vulnerabilities that need to be patched. It was more or less, you have to really understand like the operations side and the potential impact from, doing patching in those environments and understanding the risks and the cost, and having a really well fleshed out plan of how you're going to, after the identification of the vulnerability, how you're going to test and verify that patch on like the system that is close to the environment that you're going to actually be deploying it in, tested there first, and then work closely with the operations management team to like plan and actually do test runs of that patching on an actual operational system to make sure that it's not going to take down operations and cost them like $10,000 a minute when they're down. So there's a lot more complexity to patching in certain environments compared to others. So in a you know a manufacturer is more of like a batch processing plant, right? Whereas like a substation's continuous operations. So you're, unless there's a time period where a substation is going to go down for maintenance where they can actually do patching or something, those systems are probably not going to be patched. You'll also have situations in chemical factories where the systems are going to run for 2 years and you're not going to patch that system. You're only going to apply the patches on that system when that system's down for a down period, like a reactor, for example.
Dan, you make great points there, and that's why we always talk about a defense in depth. We talk about the vulnerability assessment, identifying your crown jewels, protect what matters, and everything matters, but some things matter differently. But you make a great point that hey, these things may not shut down for years to patch. How do we we have a device that showed up on our KEV list. We know that it can be exploited. How do we prioritize it? How do we roll out that schedule, test those patches and things like that? And your database, I think, is a pretty cool thing to help people realize what they're facing. You can't patch everything, nor should you patch everything.
No.
Right. So what do you patch beside your gateways, and where do you get that actionable information and know what's being exploited and things like that? And I think your list there shows that very well.
Yeah, I think it starts to scratch the surface on doing that. I think the challenge is my solution is trying to cater to everyone, whereas like each sector kind of has like their own kind of nuances for vulnerability patch management, and some sectors will prioritize vulnerability patch management over much higher than others, you know what I mean, depending on their risk appetite. Because what I've encountered a lot of times with asset owners is depending on their risk appetite, they don't, because they haven't been exploited and they don't feel that they're vulnerable, or they have some level of monitoring, they feel that well, I really don't have to patch, this is going to be fine. And that's they understand their operation better than I do and what their business risks are. However, I think it's wise to always have a plan. I think you should always have a vulnerability management plan in place when something happens. Part of being a cybersecurity professional and part of working in cybersecurity is knowing that just being comfortable that bad days happen and you're just going to have to work through them, and it's just part of the whole process of cybersecurity. I mean, that's how I think of it. It's the same thing with like incident response, right? An incident's going to happen. An incident event's going to happen. You're going to have to investigate. So you should have a plan in place to do it and be comfortable with it. and realize it's just going to happen, and it's just part of the vice, stressing out and being, or like living in denial, saying, "Oh, that'll never happen to me."
You kind of have to understand what you have as well. Getting back to Tom's point about crown jewels, communications, the complexity around control environments. We've got different ways to do remote access to get in. So certainly anything that's on the edge, gateways, VPNs, keeping those at the top of our list. In some of my experiences, some of the industries that I've been in, there's been a lot of information sharing. Data that's going from the control environments out to the business network. And so there's always kind of like this connectivity into some of that information, whether it's just for view or it's to make business-based decisions on. So, understanding that data flow, what is exposed, that information, where's it at? I think it's important to understand those crown jewels, those things that are important to operations and operational decisions. And so this type of thing, helps us maintain that kind of view into some of those products and solutions. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think having that understanding of the products and solutions that are in your environment is key to developing strategies to protect them, understanding the risk from those assets, understanding whether they are considered a crown jewel or not, understanding whether how you can operate without having to patch or migrate to a upgraded system, and how to budget for that.
Now, do you see this as more of a role for the operators, the engineers and stuff like that? Or is this more of like a corporate security program, risk management type of effort?
I think you need both to really effectively do it. I think you need, and this is where having really good communication within your organization to communicate between the business operation units and the OT operators and the cybersecurity team and the IT team to all kind of come together and speak and talk together about their operational challenges, understanding, because business units might think that they have a good idea of what their crown jewels are, but the operators themselves might have a far better understanding of what the actual crown jewels are in their OT operation environment, just like a team would have the same.
Dan, we're coming to an end to this podcast. Where do you see vulnerabilities in the Kev list and all the stuff we talked about here in the last half hour going? And how is AI playing in all of this?
I think the vulnerabilities and the Kev list, I think, is just going to continue to. I think it's going to continue to expand. There's third-party companies that do vulnerability intelligence that have their own Kev list now that they're tracking on their own, and that are much larger than what that CISA has. But CISA is based off of their fused intelligence, which they're probably getting between that they share between U.S. Cybercom and them, so they might have more insight to these vulnerabilities than others. Where I think AI comes in here is I think it can definitely help with organizations towards weighing the risk from these vulnerabilities based off of the information you feed it, just like we talked about. Is the system itself that's impacted by this vulnerability a crown jewel? What's its impact on the actual business operations if it goes unpatched? What are the potential defense in depth approach to protecting this if they're not already in place? And I think
But that still takes understanding yourself, getting that
It does.
that list of assets and software and everything.
Absolutely. And I don't think AI is going to fix it automatically for everyone. I think you have to like work with the AI where it's at today to solve this problem. AI is only as good as the information that it has on hands to help you. It's the same thing with when you're using machine learning, because machine learning a lot of times it gives you a confidence score of like how accurate it is to, you know, what it's identifying, you know, as far as like a potential vulnerability. And I haven't implemented any sort of AI ML into the ICS Advisory Project at this time. And I mean, and when it comes to like identifying and bringing in like more data and cleaning up these data sets and everything for organizations that provide like data similar to the ICS Advisory Project, there's still human beings in the loop cleaning up the data. It's not all, you know, AI and scrapers going out there. Scrapers do part of the work to bring in that data, but it's still a human in the loop cleaning up data.
And that's why I really wanted to call out that you're doing this project and putting all of this effort into. I know how much it is. Tom, any last thoughts before we drop off?
No real last thoughts, but Dan, great job on your project there. Keep up the good work. Enjoyed talking to you for a half hour here today, and I hope the audience feels the same.
My pleasure. And I appreciate you guys correcting me on some things, and I also enjoyed the conversation.
Excellent. Where can people find you, Dan? Besides LinkedIn, we'll have LinkedIn in the show notes. But is there any
So there is a Discord channel for the ICS Advisory Project. We're also on Mastodon and gosh, why can't I remember that? And also,
we'll make sure we get the links in there in the show notes. So really appreciate it. Thanks again, Dan, and everybody. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you. Blue sky. There it is.